The first time Warren Blake met an alien, he had a dislocated shoulder and 3 ribs pressing into his lung. He also had a half-eaten protein bar in his pocket, which, oddly, would turn out to be more valuable than anything else he brought into space. 3 days earlier, Warren stood in the launch bay of the UN stellar research vessel Calmer, trying not to throw up. He had been an engineer once, then an instructor, then a systems analyst. Now, inexplicably, he was Cultural Resilience Liaison, a title that sounded like a diplomatic sneeze. His job was to explain no, to demonstrate how humans survived what they did. Not in theory, not in lectures, but by being dropped into alien contact situations and essentially not dying. He didn't even make it to the alien vessel before something went wrong. The shuttle had barely cleared the Calmer's docking perimeter when a navigational relay failed mid-transfer. It wasn't sabotage, just a shoddy component. The kind of thing Warren had warned about in a 3-page report last month. He remembered it vividly because someone had spilled coffee on it. The shuttle spun, alarms screamed, and Warren barely had time to strap in before the inertial dampeners lagged by half a second. That half-second was enough to drive his left shoulder out of its socket and slam his chest into the harness. He didn't black out, but he wished he had. The crash wasn't catastrophic. The emergency landing protocols kicked in, and the shuttle auto docked into the nearest habitable orbiting structure, which happened to be the alien vessel he was meant to make first contact with. He awoke to a cold, sterile room with silver walls and a ceiling that pulsed like it was breathing. An alien stood over him, tall and jointless, its skin a dull slate gray, smooth like wet river stones. It held a scanning device that whirred and chirped as it passed it over Warren's chest. Warren groaned, tried to sit up, and nearly passed out again. "You are damaged," the alien said. "Yup," Warren said through gritted teeth. "That's one way to put it. I am Kelan. I have initiated your biological parameters. Your outer structure is compromised. Internal compression is evident around your respiratory organ. Why are you not in stasis?" "Because I'm not dead," Warren said. "And because humans don't just go into stasis when we're hurt. Also, I think one of my ribs is poking my lung." Kelan tilted its head. "You are frail. Tell me something new." Warren leaned back, breathing carefully. Every inhale was a dull knife to the chest. He didn't have to be a doctor to know something was wrong. But what concerned him more was the way Kelan looked at him, not with hostility, but with the kind of fascination you might reserve for a spider weaving a web inside a furnace. "You should not have survived the inertial compression," Kelan said. "Your skeletal structure is insufficiently reinforced. Your fluids are uncontained. Yeah, well, we tend to leak a bit under pressure. You are not engineered for space." "Nope, you are inefficient, absolutely." Kelan paused. "And yet alive, barely," Warren admitted. "But give me a day or two, maybe a scan or X-ray. And some painkillers if you've got anything." The alien turned away and spoke into a panel. Moments later, a drone glided in, carrying what looked like a medical scanner and a translucent capsule. The scan was quick and thorough. Warren flinched when the ribs lit up bright red on the display. One was cracked, 2 were displaced. The shoulder was dislocated but not shattered. He waited as Kelan studied the data. "You will not recover efficiently," Kelan said. "We have not enhanced your biology. Your healing will be slow." Warren raised an eyebrow. "You know we heal on our own, right?" "Takes time, but it happens. You persist despite inefficiency." "That's kind of our thing," Warren said. Kelan handed him a narrow strip of plastic. "Apply this. It will reduce inflammation." Warren pressed it to his chest. The burn was immediate, but within seconds, his breathing eased slightly. "Thanks. So, first contact, huh? You are the liaison, sort of. I also fix toilets." Kelan blinked. "Why would a diplomat repair sanitation?" "Because we don't put people in neat boxes," Warren said. "Sometimes the guy who explains your culture is also the guy who unclogs your pipes." Kelan studied him for a long time. "This explains nothing." Warren tried to sit up again, this time with more success. "Let me put it this way. We're not built like you. Our bones break, our skin tears, our organs fail, but we adapt, we think fast, we improvise, we persist." "For what purpose?" "For each other," Warren said. "For curiosity. For the next sunrise. For the dumb idea that maybe tomorrow's worth seeing." Kelan didn't respond, it simply observed. Over the next few days, Warren remained in the alien sickbay. They didn't have a bed he could rest in properly, so he slept propped against a wall, wrapped in something that smelled like cold sand. Kelan brought him data pads, asking increasingly personal questions, how humans dealt with pain, with fear, with uncertainty. How did your species reach interstellar capability? Kelan asked once. When your physical design is so vulnerable, you ever heard of duct tape? Warren replied. No, then I've got so much to teach you. By the end of the week, Warren could walk short distances. Slowly, carefully, the shoulder was still weak, ribs still bruised, but he was mobile. And Kelan, for all its logical detachment, seemed intrigued. Your mind, Kelan said one night, is not aligned with your body. It is disproportionately resilient. That's the nicest thing anyone's said to me lately. You are inefficient, disorganized, and emotionally unstable, still going. But your cognition adapts under pressure. You create solutions faster than biologically expected. You are not predictable. We call it thinking on our feet. You were not on your feet. You were internally bleeding. Details. Warren chuckled, then winced as pain shot through his ribs. Kelan didn't laugh. But it didn't look away either. A week and a half after the crash, the Calmer re-established contact. A retrieval team docked, ready to bring Warren back. He stood at the airlock, still sore, still wrapped in a support brace, holding the now empty protein bar wrapper. You came here to show us how you survive, Kelan said. Not how I planned it, but yeah. You did not survive by strength, nope, or speed, definitely not. You survived by will, by problem solving, Warren said, by knowing that pain isn't the end. That being broken doesn't mean you stop trying, Kelan nodded. Your body is frail, your mind is not. Exactly. The alien extended a long, smooth limb. Warren shook it, wincing. You will return to your people, Kelan said. Yeah. And I'll probably get stuck in physical therapy for a month. Your people survive through pain. We survive through each other. And through stubbornness. As the airlock closed behind him, Warren leaned against the bulkhead, exhausted but upright. Back on the Calmer, the med team scanned him again. One rib had shifted dangerously close to a lung. They rushed him into surgery. He didn't argue. He lay there under the lights, letting the machines do their work. Recovery took 5 weeks. Not 2, not 10. 5. The shoulder was rehabilitated with regular therapy. The ribs healed slowly with careful monitoring. No shortcuts, no magic tech. Just biology, patience, and the occasional muttered curse when he tried to lift his arm too fast. And 2 days after he was cleared for duty, the UN assigned him to a second alien contact mission. He didn't hesitate. They said his body was frail. They were right. But they hadn't seen what a human mind could do when it refused to break. Warren sat upright gingerly on the edge of a metal bench that hummed faintly beneath him. The room, if it could be called that, resembled a decontamination chamber fused with a minimalist art gallery. Angled walls shifted hue every few minutes, cycling between pale citrine and a color that looked like regret. Across from him stood 3 Quarnathi, taller than Kelan and arranged in a triangle, as if geometry lent authority. Your species permits physical instability in exploratory personnel, the one with lateral eye ridges asked. Warren adjusted his sling. We permit a lot of things, like pineapple on pizza and bungee jumping. This is tame by comparison. The shortest of the trio leaned forward. You are the second human to arrive. The first was a projection. That'd be the ambassador. Holograms don't bruise easy. I'm the follow-up with bones and opinions. An audible shift occurred among the Quarnathi, like a breath shared between them. They didn't blink, none of them did, but their eyes dimmed slightly. A gesture Warren had learned to interpret as caution dipped in curiosity. You were instructed not to enter until diplomatic protocols were complete, the third Quarnathi said, its tone like static filtered through velvet. Right, but I didn't enter, I crashed. Technically, I was flung. There are memos. Your presence was unscheduled. Welcome to human scheduling, Warren said. We plan, the universe laughs. The trio exchanged glances that weren't glances in the traditional sense, more a subtle shifting of posture, as if they'd silently agreed to rearrange their intentions. Your physiology is suboptimal, the second one said, yet your cognitive patterns remain. Erratic, adaptive, unstructured. That's how we get things done. We don't wait for perfect conditions. We duct tape the wings mid-flight. The third Kwarnathi stepped closer. Explain duct tape. It's a miracle adhesive, holds together everything from spacecraft to political alliances. If you don't have it, you're improvising wrong. Another shared pause. The first Kwarnathi circled him slowly, examining the sling, then the brace under his shirt where the ribs were still healing. You continue to move despite internal damage. Staying still is worse, Warren said. Pain's a signal, not a stop sign. Your species ignores biological warnings. We listen, he said. We just don't always obey. The shortest Kwarnathi turned toward a translucent panel and activated something. A projection appeared, an anatomical rendering of a human rotating slowly, with red markers over joints, nerve clusters, and vital organs. This structure lacks redundancy, it said. Single heart system, limited bone reinforcement, no regenerative capacity beyond basic tissue repair. No exoskeletal buffering, true, but we've got imagination, you can't scan for that. They remained silent for a long time. Warren leaned back slightly, regretting it instantly as a twinge shot under his ribcage. Your discomfort persists. Yeah. It's not going away anytime soon. You are not requesting sedation. Nope, makes me fuzzy and I need to be sharp. This is a first contact scenario, not nap time. The second Kwarnathi tilted its head. You prioritize clarity over relief. Pain reminds me I'm still in the game. The first Kwarnathi turned toward the others. This is not a survival pattern, it is an assertion. No, Warren said, it's a refusal. To what? To fold. That did something. A ripple passed through the Kwarnathi trio, subtle but unmistakable. It was how they processed paradigm shifts internally, without drama, like a spreadsheet recalculating itself. Your species continues function under duress, the third said. Not due to superiority of form, but due to stubbornness, Warren supplied. We call it grit, or spite, depending on the day. They didn't laugh, but the second Kwarnathi, whose name Warren still hadn't caught, nodded slowly. Demonstrate, excuse me, demonstrate your mental resilience, Warren blinked. You want me to outthink a wall, we require a task that reveals the depth of your cognitive flexibility. Great, he muttered. You want a puzzle while I'm still held together with Velcro and willpower. Will this impede your function? Warren sighed. Only slightly. They led him carefully down a corridor that curved like a Möbius strip with stairs. Every few meters, the floor shifted texture, from soft resistance to faint suction. It felt like walking through a dream designed by someone who hated symmetry. After several turns, they entered a chamber with a crystalline cube suspended mid-air. Inside the cube, a series of symbols rotated in slow, deliberate patterns. Below it, a console with no visible controls blinked amber. This is a recursive logic interface, the first Kwarnathi said. It adapts to the solver's mental framework, meaning it evolves with your intent. Solve one layer, the next one becomes more abstract. No two iterations are the same. Warren stepped closer. How many layers? The record stands at 12. What happens if I hit 13? The second Kwarnathi didn't answer. The implication hung in the air like static. Warren exhaled, flexed his fingers, and reached toward the console. The moment his hand hovered over it, the symbols slowed further, aligning into a pattern that resembled a question mark made of spirals. He tapped once. The spirals scattered. A new pattern formed this time, a lattice of shifting nodes, each flickering between states. He began to work. 20 minutes passed. Then 30. His ribs ached. Sweat beaded along his forehead, but not from exertion, from focus. He wasn't solving the puzzle linearly. That wouldn't work. The interface responded to intent, not logic. He had to unthink his way through it, make decisions that didn't make sense until after he'd made them. By the 7th layer, the colors began to change in response to his hesitation. By the 9th, the symbols started mimicking his posture. By the 11th, the console pulsed in time with his heartbeat. He reached the 12th layer. His vision blurred slightly, not from fatigue but from overstimulation. The patterns no longer obeyed spatial logic, they folded in on themselves, recursive and dimensional. He could feel his breath sinking with the cube's rotations. He leaned forward. Pain flared in his side, sharp and immediate. He didn't stop. One more move. Not a solution. A surrender to the chaos. He tapped the upper left quadrant, then the lower right, then nothing at all. The cube froze. The room dimmed. Then, slowly, the cube rotated once, just once, and dissolved into a mist that smelled faintly of copper and ozone. Warren staggered back, caught himself on the edge of the console. None of the Kwarnathi spoke for a full minute. Finally, the third one stepped forward. 13, Warren nodded, chest heaving. So what do I win? You altered the interface. Didn't mean to. You redefined its parameters. I was just trying not to lose. The first Kwarnathi turned toward the others. This is not learned behavior. This is instinctual subversion. Warren wiped his face. We call it thinking outside the box, or inside the exploding cube in this case. You were in pain. Still am. You ignored it. No, I worked with it. The second Kwarnathi tapped the edge of the console. Your body is inefficient, sure. But your mind repurposes failure into leverage. That's the idea. The Kwarnathi looked at him not with pity, not with confusion, but with something approaching admiration. You are not built to endure, the third said. You choose to. Warren smiled, a tired, crooked thing. Now you're starting to get us. The room they gave Warren wasn't meant for habitation. It was probably a storage pod originally, or a calibration chamber. The walls were smooth and cool, the floor slightly convex, and the single resting platform was designed for a species with fewer joints than a human. Still, it was quiet, and it didn't smell like burning insulation or antiseptic, so Warren counted it as a win. He lay flat on the platform with a folded support wedge under his back to keep pressure off his ribs. The brace helped, but only just. Breathing was easier than it had been 2 weeks ago, but every turn, every sneeze, every involuntary twitch during sleep still came with a jolt of pain that made him mutter inventive curses into the pillow. A soft chime pulsed from the wall panel. He grumbled and sat up slowly, pressing a hand to his side as he shifted. The panel flickered, then opened with a faint hiss. Kelan entered, followed by a new Kwarnathi Warren hadn't seen before. This one was shorter, with intricate patterns along its upper limbs that shimmered faintly when it moved. Warren Blake, Kelan said. This is ALSEC. They specialize in non-biological cognition analysis. Translation, Warren asked, adjusting his sling. They study the mental frameworks of species that exhibit unpredictable logic. ALSEC stepped forward, tilting its head slightly. You exceeded the recursive interface threshold. That is not common. I've been told I'm not common, Warren said. Usually by people who want me to leave. You did not optimize for score. You disassembled the problem structure itself. Well, when the rules don't make sense, we tend to make new ones. ALSEC's fingers flexed outward, a gesture Warren hadn't seen before. This is contrary to cooperative problem-solving models. Sure, but it's excellent for surviving chaos. ALSEC folded its arms behind its back. We would like to monitor your decision-making process during stress replication. Hang on, stress replication, Kelan stepped beside ALSEC. A controlled simulation. Variable pressure, time constraints, degraded sensory input. We will observe your cognitive prioritization under compounded stimuli. You want to run me through a panic obstacle course. That description is not inaccurate. Warren eased himself fully upright and swung his legs over the edge. You really want to know what stress does to a human mind. You sure? It's not elegant, it's not tidy. That is why it must be observed, he rubbed his temples. And if I say no, we will respect your refusal, Kelan said, but the data will remain incomplete. ALSEC added, we have not encountered a species that adapts through irrational synthesis. This is an opportunity. Warren looked between them, then stood slowly. Fine, but if I throw up, someone's cleaning it. The simulation chamber was colder than the rest of the vessel, not freezing, but just cold enough to make his skin prickle. The walls shimmered with embedded projectors, and the floor adjusted subtly underfoot, like walking on a ship's deck in choppy water. They didn't brief him. A countdown pulsed once above the door, then vanished. The lights shifted to a dull amber, and sound began creeping in a low hum at first, then sharp metallic scraping, then overlapping voices in languages he didn't recognize. The walls narrowed. Warren's breath hitched automatically. He knew it was fake. He told himself that. But the gradual compression of the space, the flickering shadows, the disorienting floor, it all worked together to trigger something deeper than logic. A hatch opened abruptly on the far side. He moved toward it, favoring his right side. The ribs weren't screaming, but they were muttering threats. The sling restricted quick movement, but he managed. Inside the next section, gravity shifted every few steps, not dramatically, just enough to throw off balance. Disembodied voices issued contradictory instructions. Right corridor is safe. Do not enter right corridor. Proceed immediately. Remain still. Warren stopped walking. You're trying to overload executive function, he muttered. Cute. He closed his eyes briefly, then opened them and looked for the only thing that hadn't changed: airflow. A faint breeze drew toward the left exit. He followed it. The next room was darker, with a low ceiling and uneven floor segments. The temperature dropped again, and simulated smoke began to fill the space. Not thick, just enough to obscure the edges. He crouched as best he could without compressing his chest and moved along the wall using touch. The floor vibrated under him at irregular intervals, and a high-pitched whine pulsed behind his ears. He kept moving. Eventually, a panel opened, and he stepped into a brightly lit chamber. Kelan and Alsek stood waiting. The lights returned to normal. Warren leaned against a wall, pulling in shallow breaths. Well, he said, you really committed to the theme. Alsek approached. Your behavior was inconsistent with threat avoidance logic. That's how we survive. We don't ignore the fear, we move anyway. You did not respond to verbal cues. They contradicted each other. You prioritized airflow over auditory instruction. It was the only thing that didn't lie to me. Kelan stepped forward. Your body exhibited elevated stress indicators. Heart rate, perspiration, oxygen intake. You think resilience means staying calm? No, it means functioning while panicking. Alsek tilted its head. This is not how we define stability. We're not stable, that's the point. They were quiet for a moment. Then Alsek said, you did not solve the simulation. There was no singular solution. Exactly. That's why I passed. Later that day, Warren sat with a nutrient pack and a lukewarm cup of something the Kwarnathi claimed was hydrating. It tasted like moss and minerals, but it didn't upset his stomach, so he drank it anyway. Kelan entered again, alone this time. We have reviewed your biostatistics. You are healing within predicted margins. Still hurts. Pain is not a failure state. No, Warren agreed. It's a data point. Kelan sat across from him, its posture more relaxed than before. We have encountered species that withstand extreme environments by altering their form. You alter behavior instead. We can't change the environment. So we change how we think about it. Adaptation through perception. Yep, sometimes the only thing you can control is your own reaction. Kelan watched him silently. Then, we are compiling a report for the council. Your input will be central. Warren set down his cup. And what exactly are you going to say? That your species is physically vulnerable but neurologically volatile in a way that produces high survival variance. Sounds flattering. It is not intended to flatter. It is intended to warn. Warren smiled faintly. Even better. It may affect future contact protocols. Good. Maybe next time they'll send someone with both shoulders intact. Kelan stood. You have demonstrated sufficient resilience. You will be returned to your vessel tomorrow. Warren nodded. Then I guess this is the part where you say goodbye. We do not say goodbye, we say continue. He raised his cup. Then continue, Kelan. The next morning, he boarded the retrieval shuttle slowly, careful not to twist his torso. As the hatch closed behind him, he took one last look at the Kwarnathi vessel. They had studied him. Poked, prodded, simulated, and analyzed, and they still didn't quite understand. But maybe that was the whole point. Resilience didn't come from perfection. It came from persistence. And humans were very, very good at that.